Well, gang, this podcast is dropping the day before Thanksgiving, and babe, I can't help but ask the question, how can you possibly be thankful this Thanksgiving? 2020, pandemic, election results still in the balance, although I know how that's going to end up. And
in a year of a lot of natural disasters, wildfires, record numbers of hurricanes, just all kinds of things to just make you think, oh my goodness, we've gone crazy.
Yeah. Well, and again, it'd be easy to say, no, there's nothing to be thankful for this Thanksgiving. But gang, if you know us, we're going to tell you how to be thankful this Thanksgiving. My name's Jim.
And Christie
Jacobus with Your Marriage Matters, podcast number 127. And this podcast is all about helping people build the more vibrant, healthy marriage that they dreamed of when they said I do. And babe, this has been a tough year on relationships.
It has. There have been record numbers of people who are seeking counseling because of the stress that's caused by the pandemic and all the things we just spoke about. And it's really taken a toll on all types of relationships, but especially those of people we share our houses with.
Yeah, and you're up to 45 or so clients on Talkspace and BetterHelp?
Yes, and you see how all the stress has affected people. Yeah. And I oftentimes think when I see things on Facebook or any form of social media, how that can be detrimental because people see it in the news, they know they're experiencing it, and then they see it again on their outlets, which are social media.
Right.
And to make matters worse, a lot of our coping mechanisms of, going outside, socializing with others, going to places that are fun and entertainment like sporting venues, those are a lot of times affected by COVID as well.
Yep.
So its effects are just layer upon layer, and it just seems like it's been so difficult. And the other thing, like you said, we listened to a podcast yesterday, and it doesn't seem like there's an end in sight. So, what are we supposed to do? How are we supposed to be thankful?
Yeah, I was going to skip telling everybody that the expert that Joe Rogan was interviewing said we're just getting ready to hit the second phase. It may be worse than the first. There's going to be a third phase, a fourth phase. But, there's nothing wrong with being aware of what's going on out there. So, gang, if you're here for the first time, welcome. That is a great question. How can you be thankful this Thanksgiving with all the crazy things that are going on? And we certainly know that some of you are in some really tough situations, and we're going to talk about that today. And if you're here with us and you've been here from the beginning or you joined us along the way, welcome. We're glad you're here. This is episode 127, babe. We've been doing a lot of podcasts, and seems like the whole idea of Thanksgiving and attitude pops back up over and over again. So when we ask the question, how could you possibly be thankful this Thanksgiving? What are your thoughts about that? I mean, how are you counseling your clients?
Well, there's still so much for which to be thankful. And you look around us, and it's very difficult. We still live in an amazing country. We live in a wonderful area. We know people that can help us out. So there's still, in the things that really matter, maybe if 2020 did anything for us, it reshifted our focus to priorities and things that really matter. And so I think there's so many things to be thankful for, but there's also so many people to be thankful for.
Right.
Even in looking at the election, which was as about as contentious as election as I've ever seen,
Yep.
We still need to be thankful that there are people in positions of leadership who are helping to steer a course through this really unprecedented time.
Right. Like I say, you have 40 to 45 clients on your online platforms and everything. What do you see some of the things they're struggling with this Thanksgiving?
Well, the same as probably everybody. It's probably a really good microcosm of what's going on across the country. There's a lot of anxiety. There's a lot of depression because of things that people perceive that we've lost. Anxiety is really focused on the future. And when you look to the future, because there's so many question marks, because some of the things that you would normally rely on aren't there, then a lot of people are feeling extremely anxious. When you look at the financial situations that people are going through and the insecurities around financial decisions, then there's a lot to be causing people to have some angst right now. And then it takes its toll on relationships for a number of reasons, all of that just considered. Plus, in a lot of cases, we're spending more time in things that we can't control. And like, we can't control whether it's lockdown. I've read so much about wearing masks and how that there can be differences of opinions in regards to what you should and shouldn't do that causes conflict. The whole situation about should we get together for Thanksgiving can cause rifts within the same family.
Yeah.
There's political divisions. And when when you look at the map of the United States and you see the red and the blue everywhere, that same problem happens a lot of times within families.
Yeah.
Not just the extended families, but in immediate family members where folks are struggling behind, what they believe politically to be correct. So I think what we're seeing in counseling is a probably good cross-section of what's going on in the country. And luckily, people are seeking mental health or emotional stability, because in times like these, you really do need to make sure you're taking care of all of your health. We're hearing a lot about physical health.
Right.
One of the things that's an important factor to know in preventing COVID or making it less lethal is how well you're taking care of yourself. So if there's ever been a reminder how very important it is to be healthy, COVID has reminded us that. But in the same vein, you still need to take care of your emotional, mental, and spiritual health, because in times like this, that's the one thing that you really need to shore up is your health.
Yeah, well, and again, I think about it like this. I think anybody that knows me knows I'm a pretty positive person. All the time, people go, "How are you doing?" Awesome. People have asked me before, "How's that?" Well, because I decide what kind of day I have. You won't decide. COVID won't decide, although it tried. Certainly for a couple of weeks, it had us both ill. But, I look at it like this. I think situations are what they are, but what we choose to do with them is up to us. And I'm certainly not suggesting to anybody out there that's struggling, that's lost a job, that's been sick, or is sick with COVID, or has a family member sick with COVID, or lost somebody with COVID. I'm not suggesting that the world's rosy. I think that's a really bad way to look at the world. Everything's rosy, everything's amazing, because if you do, you're going to get kicked in the teeth at some point in time, because life is tough. But what I do believe is we have the ability to hold every situation up to the light, to look at it from the good, the bad, and the ugly side, and choose to focus on the good. And I think that's really what I encourage people to do during times like this, is don't act like there's not trouble out there. Don't act like you couldn't get COVID. Don't act like your job is immune from losing it, because you certainly could, and people have. What I suggest people do is that they look at all of that and accept it. It is what it is. What am I going to do about it? All right? Because taking action, we've talked about in our last couple of podcasts how important it is to take action. But I want to choose to look at the good. And even in really difficult times, there's still so much good going on. Mm-hmm. I mean, I have you, I have Marley. We're blessed. And again, I'm not going to suggest that we struggled are struggling as much as others are, although I had a pretty bad case of COVID, and that could have been really an unfortunate situation, and we got healthy after that, so we're thankful for that. So I'm not suggesting that people shouldn't, be serious about this, because we should. I'm suggesting that in the midst of all that, we can still look at what are the positives.
Right.
And I think there's a lot of positive things going on. We have each other, we have our health, we have our family. We got, 3 amazing grandkids, Jason and Caitlin. We have your family. We've got so many good things going on in our country in the midst of all this turmoil. You said it a while ago. Still, we've lived a lot of places or traveled a lot of places abroad. I can't think of a single place that I'd rather pick up and leave here to go to. Mm-hmm. No, I'd rather be here in the midst of all of this. And yes, it's crazy, and I am of the opinion that neither the right or the left have it figured out, and that they just want to stay in power, and they're going to do the best they can for us as long as it doesn't jeopardize their power position. So I'm not sold on either one of them fixing my life. As a matter of fact, we just did a podcast here a while back that talked about my life is going to have more to do positively what happens in this house and what happens in the White House. And that's a quote that you brought over from Barbara Bush, I believe, said that. And so we're going to focus on making our house the best it possibly can be, and that's what I encourage people to do out there. So what do you think people ought to do for Thanksgiving?
I think that you need to take into consideration all the factors that are going on in your particular situation. And that's not a cop-out to say it's up to you to decide. But if you have people who you have been around and you've been exposed to them, or they're in your inner circle, then I think a small social gathering does make sense. I think where you have to really take into consideration, or who you have to take into consideration, are the people who, if they were to get COVID, could be, extremely endangered by it.
Yeah.
So I think if we could all just do our part for a little bit longer. It's interesting when you look back in the war efforts, the whole country had to band together against a common enemy, which was, of course, the people we were fighting in World War II. In this case, if we all banded together and said, okay, if we just do this for a little while, if we sacrifice for now, then maybe what we can do is flatten that wave that you're talking about. So I'm of the opinion that look at your own situation, look at what's going on. The big, parties and festivities, they have things called Friendsgiving, where a bunch of friends get together. I think things like that, where you're going to expose yourself to a great number of people, puts the community at risk. And I know so many healthcare workers who are just exhausted by all of this.
Yeah.
So anything we can do to help not just our community and our small individual communities, but the communities at large, I think is going to be a tremendous help. So,
yeah, and again, I think, I struggle with people who are anti-maskers. It's all about freedom or fear or anything like that. No, I wear a mask yesterday playing racquetball because I want to make sure that I, don't infect somebody else. And of course, not having COVID means I'm probably not likely to, but doesn't mean I'm 100% not going to. Mm-hmm. So I think wearing masks, washing hands, social distancing, being careful about being around people who are higher risk and things like that, just being smart and doing our part. I mean, like I said, I had it, you had it, I had a pretty bad case. I wouldn't wish that on anybody.
Right.
Even though I survived, obviously, I wouldn't wish that on anybody. That was brutal.
And maybe one of the things we can be thankful for is not only our health, but our knowledge that we have about health. This virus is wicked, and like you just said, It is. But are there things we can do right now when you can't do control about a lot of things that are going on? Could you eat healthier, exercise more, lose weight, take vitamins and supplements, drink plenty of water, get enough sleep, do all those things that we already know to do? The good news sounds like on the horizon, they do have a vaccine. A vaccine is not going to be, the panacea, I'm sure, but it's still going to be one more step that, we can be thankful for, because modern medicine has helped us to really do something that in centuries past would have just wiped out populations. Right. So.
Yeah, again, we're sharing some information with you that we both, we've been listening the last couple of days to Joe Rogan podcast interview of Nicholas Christakis. And, babe, I found it fascinating, as well as very scientific, a lot of good data in there, a lot of good ideas. So I would encourage people to listen to that if you want to get some really good data. But at the end of the day, it's going to take all of us. And when we don't participate, no, it may not affect us. It really may not affect you and I, because we've had it. Mm-hmm. But it could affect somebody else. Mm-hmm. And that's what we've got to keep in mind, is that we don't want to hurt others simply because we don't want the inconvenience of wearing a mask for the, 15 minutes we're inside of a store, or it just, I don't really get that. But here's what we really want you guys to do. And it's a great question. And for some of you out there, it could be a very serious question. How in the heck can I possibly be thankful this Thanksgiving? Mm-hmm. Well, here's what we want to encourage you to do. All right. We want to encourage you to do something that we teach a lot. And babe, I think has a lot to do with why you and I are able to stay positive. Is that we encourage you to make a list of 10 things you're thankful for. Mm-hmm. do that. As soon as you hear this podcast, sit down and just take a pen and paper. You don't have to be, too elaborate about it. Matter of fact, when I make my list, the first 5 are always the same. It's my faith, and then second is you, and then third is Jason, Caitlin, the kiddos, and then it's the work that I get to do, and then it's our country, and the other 5 things are whatever's kind of going on at that point in time. I'd add, this park that we're staying at right now. I'd add our toy hauler to it. I'd add Vicky and her family because we've got to visit with them a lot. I'd add Marley, who's laying on the floor next to us here while we're doing the podcast. I could add 100 things on there if I wanted to, but we really want you to take a moment or two just to make a list of things that you are thankful for, even if you're in a really tough time right now.
Right, and it's because research has shown that what you think about and what you dwell on does affect your actions. It does affect your behavior. And if you can think positive things in your mind and focus on those, there's significant evidence that's going to say it's going to impact how you view things. I think not only 10 things that you're thankful for, but also you can think 10 people you're thankful for.
Yeah.
And be real intentional about telling people that, celebrating this, because Thanksgiving is a historical, probably truly American holiday.
Yeah.
Because it celebrates where people got together and said, this has been tough, but in spite of all of our hardships, we're going to come together and we're going to be thankful.
Yeah.
So if for no other reason, to really focus in on, in the midst of all this, there still is a great deal to be thankful for. Yeah,
and again, there's all these memes that we see on Facebook, and some of them are funny and some of them are sad. But the one meme I think really kind of gets my attention every time. It said, it's not happy people who are thankful, it's thankful people who are happy. Mm-hmm. And so, gang, we want to build into all of you that constant awareness of, it's tough. All right, but I'm thankful, and I am, as I said, 10 things I'm thankful for. I always start with my faith, and I'm sorry, but God comes before you. But you are the thing I'm most thankful for in my life. I know that I would not be as blessed in so many other areas if it wasn't for you. And so this Thanksgiving, I'm just thankful I'm going to get to spend time with you and with family and enjoy some things. So, babe, I love you. I can't tell you how much I appreciate you.
I love you too.
Thanks for joining us on this week's episode of Your Marriage Matters with the Jacobuses. If you have any questions you would like to see us answer or an idea for a future episode, please go to www.yourmarriage-matters.com/QIF and let us know. We will do our very best to make it happen. And if you enjoyed the podcast, we encourage you to share it with your friends that are engaged or seriously dating. We are growing like crazy because you are passing it on. So thank you. That's it for today. We'll see you next week on Your Marriage Matters. Have a great conversation this week.